everyone, and welcome to Chrome Dev Summit Extended SSA. Super excited to be here and super excited about what the session is going to have for us. So a few guidelines before we get started. Be kind to one another on the chat section, and let's just get to know where is everybody joining us from before we dive straight into the agenda. My name is Alela Eunice. I'll be your moderator for the day. I am a part of the developer relations team at Google as a community manager. So yes, let's get to know where is everybody joining us from. Yay! So just go to slido.com. I'm going to be sharing something. Then let us know which exact location, which GDG, which DSC chapter, where are you joining us from? CT. So yeah, so go to slido.com. The pin is 33156, and let us know where you're joining us from. Yeah, I'm seeing GDG Lafia. So just go to Slido. Let's get to know where is everyone joining us from. The link will be dropped on the chat section. Okay, so we have one response from Uganda. I know we have many people on the call. Just tell us where you're joining us from. Go to slido.com. Pin is 33156. Before we take a deep dive into what exactly is today going to be about. There is someone from Benin. Waiting for more responses. Let's get it to 10. I know we can do this. So yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, more responses coming our way. Come on, let us know where are you joining us from. Nigeria in bold. Yay. Okay. I think after this, I'm going to ask for a ticket to come to Nigeria. So tell us where you're joining from, just at least to get us going, to get us in the mood of, okay, we're joining from various parts of Sub Saharan Africa. And maybe on the chat section, you can tell us what are you looking forward to? What is it that you want to learn from this whole Chrome Dev Summit Extended? Okay, more responses coming in. We're at 22. I'm sure we can do better. Let's get to 30. More responses coming our way. Let's continue just telling each other where are you joining from, and maybe on the chat section, tell us what exactly are you looking forward to learning from this session. 22 responses. I'm sure we can do better. We can continue with this. Okay. I guess we'll let the poll run in the background as we jump straight into what exactly should you be looking forward to. Okay. 24. Okay, I like round figures, so let's get it to 30. I feel like this is a gamble. Let's get our responses to 30. Yay, 26. 4 more to go. Come on, don't disappoint. Let's get it to 30. Okay. Yay. 3 more to go. I'm sure we can do this. 3 more to go, and then we close the poll, or we can let it run in the background to get more responses. Okay. Seeing people from Abuja, Lagos, Nyeri, Mozambique, Owerri, Lafia in Nigeria, Benin, yay. So many people joining from everywhere in Sub-Saharan Africa. This is super exciting. Okay, should we increase the number to 35? Okay. Thank you so much for participating in the poll. But I'm seeing we can still give in our responses. Tell us where you're joining from. I'm seeing Cameroon on the list, GDG Akoko, Uganda, Nigeria, Mozambique, Kenya, okay, Kaduna. This is really amazing. Just seeing everybody joining from everywhere. Okay. Great. So we'll stop sharing this and get straight into what exactly do we have in store for us today. For those who are joining, as mentioned, my name is Alela Eunice. I'll be your moderator for the day, for the evening or day, depending on where you are joining us from. I am part of the developer relations team at Google, and today we are bringing to you the Chrome Dev Summit Extended for SSA. I know you're really curious to know what exactly do we have in store. What do the speakers have to share with us? Maybe you have your laptops ready to get some code. So the topics are going to range from maybe building open web for users and developers, all the way to how exactly do we make it secure. And maybe, just maybe, I'm not going to say who's going to be leading a code lab, but we may be getting our hands down and writing some code, which is super exciting. So taking you to the day's agenda, just to get to know what exactly are we supposed to be covering. Okay. So we have done the introduction, but I'm not going to be introducing our speakers. They're going to tell us more about who they are and what they do when they take us through their programs, their sessions. So we are going to be having 3 sessions. Session 0, as I'm made to believe, developers start counting from 0 and not 1. We're going to be having session 0 on web capabilities by Irae, a web GDE, and she'll tell us more about who she is and what she does during her session. Next up, we're going to be having session 1, which is building next level applications for the web by Maya Edwin, who's the lead organizer for GDG Eldoret in Kenya. And next up, we're going to be having what you should know about the core web vitals. I don't know why I kept the speaker as a secret, but it's going to be led by Mike, who's a web GDE from South Africa. Super excited about this, and handing it over to our first speaker. These are the amazing faces, but you're going to get to see them as they take us through our session. So next up, we are going to be having the amazing, I like saying that, like the amazing Irae. Yay, super excited. Hi, Irae.
Hi. Thanks for that amazing introduction. Okay, so should I just get started? Should I share I'm not sure how I'm going to do this actually, but start by sharing my screen. Okay. So can you let me know when you can see my screen?
Sure.
Okay, I can see. Wow, it's like an infinite loop into the thing. But okay, let's do present. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Irae Aderunko, and I'm one of the co-founders of Bitcoins, which is a cryptocurrency exchange based in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm a front-end developer. I have been doing this for maybe 5 years now, and I also write about web stuff basically on my blog, which is called Bits of Code. And I also do talks and try and create content around web development. And I'm also one of the web GDEs in Sub Saharan Africa. So today I'm going to do with you a code lab around the new web capabilities. So first, I just want to tell you a bit about what they are, and then I'll actually show you how you can implement some of these. So the first thing is, what is this thing called quote unquote Project Fugu? And it's basically just an effort by people building for the web to try to close the gap between what you can do on the web versus what you can do in native applications. So it's basically about giving web all these features that native applications have, because a lot of the things that people hear when they say, okay, why is this application or that application being built only on a mobile device? A lot of the reason behind it is you can only do certain things on a native mobile application, things that you can't do on the web. So this project, which is kind of like code-named Project Fugu, or it's just called like the Web Capabilities Project, is trying to really work through and build as many of these features into the web as possible. So the difference between choosing between a web application or a native application won't really come down to the feature set as much anymore. So like, what type of features are we talking about? And this is a very like shrunk down version of like the features that are actually like being considered. I just wanted to highlight some of the ones that I thought were interesting. But if you go to the website, which I think is like fugutracker.com or something, I'll add it somewhere, or I'll paste the links to it somewhere. You can see there's like literally hundreds of different features that are being considered or like already shipped. So you can see I've kind of organized this based on where they are. So things that are already shipped are things like the badging API, which is one of the things I'm going to demo today, or things like contact API, so being able to pull up the contacts in the device, or screen wake lock API, being able to control whether the device stays like awake or not. Things that are coming soon, things like local font access, so being able to access the fonts locally on the device, so you can build things using those, knowing like what's already in the device before you use them. Or something that I think is pretty cool, which is like being able to like open a progressive web application on login, the same way you can do with other like desktop or whatever applications, or just having tabs. That's a really interesting thing that you would love to be able to do in a progressive web application. So thinking about things like, I know Adobe is creating Photoshop and things as progressive web application, and those kinds of applications do also need tabs. So that's also coming. And then just being able to have like URL handlers, and under consideration, these ones are a lot more like just a broad concept that they're kind of thinking about. So things like, okay, possibility to block screenshots. So maybe in certain applications, you want to stop being able to take a screenshot, the way that if you take a screenshot of something like Telegram, it will notify everyone. So being able to like detect and maybe even block that. So those are just some of the features. And like I said, if you go to the website, you'll see that there's literally just so many of them that are making it through this pipeline, from being considered to starting work, developer trial, origin trial, and then eventually shipped. So the three that I want to demo today are the badging API, and this is all about being able to have like those notification icon badges on your application. So if there's a notification or something, it just having like the 1 or 2 or however many that's there. Then the file system access API, which allows you to like interact with the actual files on the device. So think about things like, so Photoshop is actually a good example, being able to directly access like a Photoshop file from the PWA into like the actual desktop or whatever it is. So that's like really interesting. And the face detection API, this one is just a bit more fun. It's less about utility and more about like interesting and cool things you can do. It's actually part of a broader shape detection API, which allows you to detect certain elements. So face is just one of them, and that's kind of like the fun one I want to demo today. But they have APIs for detecting like barcodes and things like that. So there is more utility to it. Although the face detection API one is pretty useful as well. You can think about certain things for that. But yeah, like I said, this is going to be a code along. So I have this link here if you want to follow along. So bits.ly/cdsx-codelab. And I'm just going to jump in. But if you want to code along, that's where the repo is. So we can just get started. So whoops, I'm back to the thing. So I'm going to go here just so you can see like where it comes from. So yeah, I just have this repo, and like I said, we're going to be demonstrating these 3 APIs, and this is based on this web capabilities. Okay, I even have the link here already. This code lab, and I'm just going to pick out these 3 ones. And this particular code lab is a little bit out of date. Like some things don't work the way they currently work, but if you click on any particular one, I'd suggest that you go to like the blog post that they link to, because that's always more up to date in terms of what you need. And then the next thing is to make sure you go to this URL, which I have linked here, because for some of these things, you might need to enable experimental web platform features. So just make sure that is enabled as well. So hopefully you can see my screen well, but I'm going to make this big. So, okay, that's too big. Or let's do it full screen and then make it bigger. Okay, so I'm going to just start a random server. Hopefully this will work. Okay, so let's go back to the browser and go to, hold on, oops, this. Doing things live is always a struggle because then you don't know what the issue is if nothing works. Let's try again. Let's do a random 3000 maybe. Hopefully this will work. Okay, good. It worked this time. Okay, so I've just set up this very, very basic page, and I've set it up because a lot of these are based on you having an actual progressive web application. I just had to do certain things. So for one, I had to link to a manifest file. So you can see this is just a very basic manifest file that I created. And you can go to, if you just Google like web app manifest generator, you can find some that will generate the basic things that you need. But yeah, this is basically just what I did. It doesn't really have to be anything fancy. You just have to have like a couple of icons and just some of these things here. And then I also needed to have a service worker. So I created this service worker file that doesn't actually really do anything. It just has to exist so that it can be an application that you can actually install. So you can see that because I have those two things, I am now able to install this application. So if I click install, you can now see that the application exists on my computer. So let me, oh God. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I mistakenly closed. I knew something was going to go wrong. Okay, back to what I was saying. So I have this application now essentially installed on my device, basically. So the first thing I wanted to show was the badging API. So to be able to have like a badge on the application icon. So I've kind of set up some of this here to make it a bit easier. And I essentially just have these two buttons, one that's going to add a number to the badge, and then one that will clear the badge. So if we go to, let me link to the badging script. So we can just start coding here. So this, like I said, is based off of the code lab from before. So I'm basically just going to be writing that here. So let's see, what do we call this one? Just bash, right?
You possibly have to enable your screen. You're not sharing your screen anymore.
God, okay. Of course. Share screen. Okay. Okay, are we good now? Okay, yes, we are. So what I was saying was I have the application now installed, so you can see that I have this SSA CDS extended app here. And what I want to do is start by demoing the badging API. So I just have these two buttons. One is like to add a badge, one is to clear the badge. And I'm going to just start doing that now. So I just have this one, which is listener. And what I need to do now is navigator dot, I think is set app badge. Yeah, set app badge, right? And then I'm just going to like add to, based on the counter, add to that. And then document dot get element by ID. I think it's clear badge. Yeah. So I'm going to add another click event listener here. And navigator dot clear app badge, right? I don't actually remember this myself. Is that an issue?
Could you probably increase the font size? I think we'll
Okay.
be able to see. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So basically, this is the two things that are important here: the navigator dot set app badge, and then the navigator dot clear app badge, right? So if I go back to this, which I can try and increase it to, so I'm going to refresh. Oops. Refresh. So I now have these two buttons to add a badge, and it might be a bit difficult to see. Oops. Okay, hold on. Counter is not defined. Oh, counter. Whoops. So let me refresh this. So add a badge, and I don't know if you can see because it's a bit small, but the badge has increased. So if I click on this, the number increases. It might be a bit difficult to see, but maybe if you can see here that the app badge has increased, and it's basically just based on this counter, and I can keep adding it. And obviously this is just a demo to show how you can use this, but obviously this is not how you would want to use to like add a badge just by a counter. It will be based on whatever logic you have in your application, but it's basically as simple as just typing navigator.set app badge to change whatever it is. And then, like I mentioned, there's this clear app badge function. So I'm on 10 now, and if I click clear, it just goes completely. So if I open this again, maybe you can see the badge is now gone. So yeah, that particular API, like you've seen, is pretty straightforward in how you can interact with it. And that's one of the things I really like about these new web capabilities. The way that the APIs are designed are always in a way that it is clear how to use, and it's pretty like straightforward in how you like actually write the code. So that is the badging API. So the next one I want to show is the file system API. I'm going to close this and then comment this out again, and then so this is basically the HTML we're going to use. There will be a button to open the file picker. Then we have a text area, which is where I'm going to load the contents of the file, and we can also edit it however we please. And then there's a button I'm adding to save the file, so saving like what is actually in our file. So I'm gonna do file system and then come here. So let me just do this. Okay. So what I'm going to do is create first this variable, which is going to be like, I guess, the file handler. And then I just need a reference to the text area that I have. Get element by ID text area was the ID as well. Then let's first do the loading of the file. So I think I called this, let me just copy, open file picker. And let's now click. So I'm going to write this out first because it can be a bit, and then I'll explain each line. And I'm just kind of essentially copying from something else because I need to make this async. So what we're doing is show open file picker. So this essentially allows us to get show the file picker essentially. So when you click it, it'll open the Explorer where you can select what file that you want to pick. Then I'm going to have a file which is going to be .get file. So this is the particular file that we picked from the file picker. Then we have the contents of that file, which is file.text. So essentially converting that to text. And then what we want to do is put the contents, so whatever text comes out, we want to put it in our text area element so that we can like edit it essentially, contents. So let's see if that works. Hopefully it will work. So I'm going to refresh this and then we have our new HTML here. So let's say open file and let's go to here. So I have this file that I created and I'm just going to open that. So you can see, okay, it worked, yay. Hello SSA CDS extended. So I'm going to just show you that file that I created. So you can see here, I have like file edits.txt, and you can see that's what was in this file that I picked. And you can see that it's now loaded there. So the next thing we want is if we edit the contents of that file, we want to then be able to save it back because obviously we need it to be able to work both ways. So that's why I have the save button. So let's see, save file. So again, add like a click handler to this. Add event listener, click. Also make this an async function. So first we need this writable variable, create writable. Yeah. Then what we want to do is writable.write, then our text area.value. So whatever value is in the text area that we're about to edit is what we want to write. And then we want to just close this off. So writable.close. Okay, so this is basically all we need to then save it back. So let's go back and see if it works. So refresh. So let's open the file. So it still says that, and then we'll just add something to this, like, let's hope this works. And then we just click save file, and then it actually pops this up to make sure, because you can't really just write without getting permission, right? So it gives this pop-up to say, okay, do you actually want to be able to edit that? So click save changes and it should work. So the way we'll test to see if it works or to see if it is if we go back, we can see that the file is actually edited. So that is actually basically it for the file systemic API. So you can see how we can access a file and save back to that file, basically just with a few lines of code, which I think is pretty awesome. So the last API I wanted to demo, let's comment this out again, is the shape detection API. So first I just added an image. And if we go back here, refresh, you can just see an image. I needed an image with a face. So obviously I just use my own picture. So now I'm going to load the shape detection scripts that I have here. And for this, because it's a bit more code, I've already like had it here, but I'm just going to go through and explain. what it is. So I created this function called detect faces, and it just takes in an image. So what it's going to do is this is essentially like the face detection API, right? This one line. So you can create a variable called faces or whatever to save every face that is detected in the image. So that's basically all this is doing. This is actually detecting each face and like saving the coordinates of the face that's detected to this face's variable. So I console log that. And then what this is doing is just creating the box around each image. So when I refresh, you're going to see that there'll be a box on my face. And if there are multiple faces, there will be boxes on multiple faces. And what this is just doing is looking at what was returned from this face detector dot detect, and it's getting like the bounding box. So like I said, the coordinates of where the face is, and then like I said, creating the box on top of it. So I'm just going to uncomment this out. So I'm just getting basically the first image, which is the only image, and putting it in this detect faces function. So let's go back and see if this works. Refresh. Okay, so let me do this a bit and see. Yeah, so that's actually basically it. You don't really have to do all that much with it. You just need to like detect the face and look at that. But one thing you might want to see is, I'm going to see if I can make this larger, just so you can see what is returned from the API itself that is then used to create the box. So you can see that it has bounding box. So it tells you exactly at what coordinates on the page the I guess the surrounding coordinates of the, I guess, bounding box, right? The bounding box of the face are. Obviously, you can see it's not like perfect because it stops right here. But with this, you can, I guess, at least just have a general idea of where the faces are. And then it also has like landmarks, and it can tell you where the eyes are, the mouth is, the nose is. So you can use this in basically whatever way you need. And this is also really useful for things like maybe if you're doing trying to create like an Instagram clone or something, or a Snapchat clone where they have all these filters. This is the first step, knowing where the face is so that you can know where to apply certain filters. And because of the granularity of this, like knowing exactly where the eye is or the mouth is or the nose is, that's how you can fully start adding things to certain parts of the face. So yeah, that's basically it for the 3 APIs that I wanted to show. Let me go back here. Stop share. Yeah, so I guess we can go to questions now. Those were the APIs that I wanted to demo. And like I said, I have all of this on my GitHub. So if you want to like try this yourself, you can definitely do that. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Irae. I think I got more curious when you said we can make our own filters. I'm like, I'll make them.
Exactly.
Okay, so Irae has walked us through the badging API, the file system access API, and the face detection API. Super amazing session. We would like to now get questions from the chat section, so feel free to post it there. We want to get to hear what do you have to ask Irae before she drops off. If you have questions, okay, looking through the chat section. So Irae, somebody is asking, where did you get the face detector class?
The like face, when you're creating a new like face detector. So that is the new API within the browser. So there isn't anything you need to do. It just already exists.
Okay. So Ashia said it already exists. Let's get to hear from you. If you have questions, kindly post them on the chat section. We have 5 more minutes with her. It should be amazing to hear what you have to ask her. Any questions for Irae regarding the topics that she has covered? Okay, Gabrielle is asking, how do you open the API within the browser?
So you don't really actually need to do anything more than what I've shown, right? So for example, when you are using like the face detection API or whatever it is, it's just like it's the same way that you add an event listener to a an element, or the same way that you like do anything. Basically, it already exists in the window object, so that's why it's awesome, because you don't have to like install face detection anything. It just exists in the browser already, so there's nothing new that you need to do, or nothing different from like creating a class or a function or anything else that already exists in the browser.
Okay, thank you, Irae. The next question would be, fast starting with a compliment. Great presentation. Is the first detection offline, or does it need any extra requests?
This is a really good question, actually, which I haven't considered. I assume it would work offline, just because like other like APIs work offline generally, but that's something I'll have to actually check. And I would suggest reading the article, which I linked to in my GitHub repo. There's an article for each of those APIs. I'll suggest like checking that out there. But I will also look into that, and maybe I'll like share on Twitter or something if when I find the answer. But yeah, I would expect it does, but I'm not 100% sure about that.
Okay, great. The next question would be, what is the security consideration of the file system access API?
Yeah, that's something that they definitely had to look into when they're creating it, because you can't just give access to everything with no permissions, right? And that's why the first time that you interact with something in that way, you have to like grant access. And I'm not sure it made me do that the first time, because obviously this is something I've done on my computer before, so maybe you remember it from the first time. But every time the first time you're going to interact with the file system API, there will definitely be a permission dialog that comes up that says, oh, do you want to grant this website access to this file? Or I'm not sure if they've done access to like desktop or like a folder yet, but I think considering it's generally like on a file by file basis, it will ask you, like the user, whoever is using the website, whether you want to grant access to that file, to that computer. So they've definitely considered the security of this, and it's not something that's just like open and any website can read like everything on your computer. That's definitely not the case.
Okay, thank you so much, Irae. I think we'll take two more questions, and this one is, how can the face detection be made more dynamic for real-time face detection processes?
So it actually already is pretty dynamic. You can do it. It's about how you want to use it, because the API exists there. So another cool thing that you can probably do is be doing the face detection on a video feed rather than just an image, right? And that way you can do stuff like, I guess like maybe if you're doing a video chat like Google Meet or something, adding filters to that. So you can be like the weird cat guy or something and put a cat on your face. You can definitely do all of that. So it's up to you how you want to use it. It's not something that has to be like static in any way. You can do it on like live video feed as well.
Okay, pretty interesting. I think I'm going to try this so that I can be the funny cat person now.
Yeah.
So we'll take, I think, the last question. And if anybody has questions, Irae, I hope they can reach out to you on Twitter, or you'll suggest with you.
Yeah, of course.
So is there any way to avoid the file API's save permission if the app is used in local internet?
No, I think either way it has to be, because for example, in what I was demoing, I'm doing it's localhost, right? It's on my thing, but all the permissions are still the same. So I don't think there's any way to circumvent it. I think it is just the way it is used. You have to first get permission before you can access anything.
Okay, great. So thank you so much, Irae, for your time. We are right on time, and we would like to maybe get to give the audience a parting shot. How can they reach out to you, and what do you have to say to them?
Sure. Thanks for watching. I hope you found it interesting and exciting. There's really like so many exciting APIs coming out that it's really going to make the web a lot more competitive in this like fight against who's going to use the create the better APIs or whatever. But yes, so you can reach out to me on Twitter, and I'm at Irae. Or you can like Google or find my website or something and get my contact details from there. But Twitter is usually a good place to just like ask any questions to me. And yeah, thanks for watching.
Okay, thank you so much, Irae. I thought you were going to say subscribe to my channel at the end of it.
Oh, yeah, subscribe to my YouTube channel.
You better subscribe to her YouTube channel, though. Yeah. So thank you so much
Exactly.
for your time and for the amazing presentation. It is good to learn from you about all the APIs and the changes that have been happening. Super excited to have you and hope to have you on the next time. Thank you so much, Irae.
Thank
And do
you.
have a fantastic time. Okay, great. That was super, like super. I don't know how should I say it. Super interesting. Just getting to learn, and I think I'm going to try to make my own Snapchat. Filters. Okay. So this is super engaging. This is super exciting. What we are going to do is I am going to make a request to everyone. The hashtag for the day is CDS extended, followed by hashtag SSA. Don't forget to share this on your social media handles. You can tag Irae for the amazing session that she has just given us, or any of the other speakers who are coming next. Also, the poll is still open for you to tell us where you're joining us from. So if you're joining us right now, go to slido.com 33156. Great. On to our next speaker. We are having Mr. Maya Edwin, the GDG Eldoret organizer and a software engineer at Sky Garden. Super excited to be having you, Maya. Yes. Okay, meet Mai. So let's get to meet Mai.
Thank you. Let me just share my screen. Your entire screen. Okay, cool. Yep, I believe I'm sharing, right?
Yes, you are.
Awesome, thanks. So my name is Maya Edwin, and I'm going to take you through this amazing topic, building next level apps for the web, basically on top of the amazing talk Irae has given. So most of the stuff I was actually going to dive into, she's really covered that very well. So what I'm going to do is also just mention a few things, and then yeah, hope you enjoy it. So like I said, I'm Maya Edwin, and I'm a front-end engineer at Sky Garden. Um, so that's where I work, and also a community guy. So currently the GDG organizer for GDG Eldoret. I've been part of the community, I think, solidly for the last 3 years. And it's been amazing. Just the opportunity to be able to kind of build a community of people who are like-minded and providing them a platform, of course, through the support by the GDG program by Google. And yeah, so it's been an amazing ride. And if you're from Eldoret, you can always join us afresh on our new GDG platform, and yeah, get to connect with some of our amazing members. Yeah, so on Twitter, I'm actively there. You can always check me out, have a chat at any time, especially on topics to do with PWAs and the web platform. Yeah, so about this talk, so basically there's been this amazing talk about web apps being able to do anything native apps can do. And Irae actually mentioned something amazing, the app gap. So being able to kind of fill in what is missing on the web platform that the native platform actually offers. And I believe where we are going with such amazing initiatives, Project Fugu, like with Google, is providing an environment where it doesn't matter if you learn how to build native applications or web apps, you will always have a level playground to build anything entirely you want to build. So what you need just to worry about will be maybe your skills. So if you want to be a web developer, you can build anything that a native app developer could build. And if you're a native app developer, you can also continue enjoying some of the amazing capabilities you already enjoy. Yeah, and that is really amazing. And the core thing that you need to understand about these new web capabilities that are being built by these browser vendors, of course, led by the Chrome team, which is really doing amazing job and taking the charge with such project like Fuji or the new web capabilities project. Yeah, so one of the three things they've really put across is that we want to build these powerful web APIs, yes, but then there are three things we need to kind of think of them as vital, and that is security. As much as we are building them on top of these, they should also be very powerful and instant, that the performance of the entire web apps that developers will build is not really affected. And someone knows about security. Yeah, that is very, very important to some of these amazing web capabilities or features that Chrome is taking charge to kind of build into the web platform. So, like the first detection API you saw, so you most of these new capabilities you can't access them without having subbed your maybe your website or web app via HTTPS and the likes. Yeah, and that is just amazing. And it's actually very safe to kind of try out and get started building these amazing features into your web applications.
Okay, so we just lost Maya for a few, and I guess let's chat. Let's talk on the chat section. So tell us, what was the most amazing part about the first session? Share with us what the most amazing part, and what was your key takeaway. I know you're gonna like discuss this or maybe look at it later, but let's get to hear from you. So, what is your key takeaway from the first session by Irae? Okay, I am waiting to see key takeaways as we wait for Maya to join us in a few. Key takeaways. Oh, yeah, you know, with virtual sessions, there's always room for technical glitches. So we're like, okay, it happens. But the same way Stack Overflow has been saving lives since 2008, I am sure Maya is going to figure out how to save this and come back and continue with the session. So we are not worried. We're going to have Maya back in a few. But let's talk about the first session. So what is your key takeaway? What are some of the learnings that you have made? I can also give you progress on how our poll is progressing. So who do we have on the call? Okay, let's see. Ooh, we are at 59. We started at one person when the first tweet went out. 59 people joining from various places across SSA. Yay, we have somebody from DRC. Manzo from GDG Jalingo. Okay, Cameroon. Gwalada. Nyeri, Kenya. Yay.
Uh-huh.
Mai is back.
I'm sorry, guys. Power just went out, and my Wi-Fi cut short.
Totally understandable. Technical glitches happen every day. Okay. Maya, you're not so clear. Maya, we cannot hear you. Okay, so yay, 2 more people have responded. Come on, let's get this number to 70. I am seeing a lot of people on the call, but it's not reflecting on the cloud. This poll is not reflecting who we have. Can we just like fill this in as we see? We try to get Maya back on the call. Tell us where you're joining us from. Also on the chat section, tell us what was the most exciting part about the first session. Also, if you're planning to make a key takeaway, so Irae often use the phrase, let's just hope it works. Yeah, this is a great attribute for a developer who truly wants to inspire others and not claim to know it all. I think that is really inspirational. So let's just hope it works. Yeah, that speaks to my soul. Okay, so we have Mai back on the call. Mai? Okay. So we have Mai on the call, but I think he's experiencing network issues. So just continue filling in the cloud, continue telling us where you're joining us from as we try to get him. Hello? Okay, so being that Maya is experiencing technical glitches, we will hope to have him at the end of the session. So we have another speaker coming up who's also a web GDE like Irae and a senior software engineer. I heard this word senior software engineer scares me. Okay. So next up, we're going to be having Mike. And he'll be joining us to tell us, yay, something exciting, web capabilities and all that. Yeah, super excited to be having you, Mike. Thank you. And
thank you, Alela. I'm just getting everything in the right place. Let's just share all of the things.
Okay.
I'm assuming everyone can see that.
I'll stop sharing.
How's that working? There we go. Yay. So it's a pity Maya cut out, unfortunately, but we'll carry on. And hi, I'm Mike. Nice to see you all. It's awesome to be here. And I thought I was going to be closing off proceedings, but I'll just fill in while we try and get Maya back on and hopefully finish his talk. So as Alela said, I'm a software engineer from Johannesburg, South Africa, and I'm a web GDE specializing in the performance and web capabilities sections. So I'm here to talk to you about Core Web Vitals and what you should know from Chrome Dev Summit. And I'm going to open it up with the question why, which is a relatively broad, open-ended question. And I like broad, open-ended questions that are open for interpretation. Why are we here? Why am I listening to this random dude? Why did I have that thing for lunch? But this particular question is related to why do we care about the Core Web Vitals at all? Well, I think it stems, or it boils down to whether we care about performance. And performance is one of those things that we don't really think about until it's way too late. We've written all of our code, we've deployed to production, and then we start experiencing issues. And it's actually, unfortunately, really, really important and difficult to prioritize. But so in the vein of thinking about performance and thinking about prioritizing performance and why we might want to prioritize performance, we can maybe look at it as maybe our users don't want to be inundated with tons of ads that distract from our experience, and maybe that's hurting us somehow. Maybe we don't want our users to have frustrating layout experiences where the page is unreliable underneath their very fingers, and they might click on something that they really didn't mean to, and the frustration that comes with that. And then finally, and this is very common for all of us, unfortunately, is maybe we don't want our users to rage click and get cross with the web application because they can't interact with anything because the JavaScript is busy and the whole browser window is frozen. And, you know, maybe we care about the fact that we come from a continent that has real different challenges to everywhere else, where connectivity is a big issue for us. Reliable power is a big issue for us. I know I'm afraid of load shedding here locally, and I've got my battery setup already hooked up. We typically use median mobile devices exclusively, so performance should be really, really essential to us, particularly on the things that we depend on. And if I can't compel you to believe in performance because of those things, perhaps, you know, we can talk about why your business should care about performance. Maybe it's so that you can have a real competitive advantage over your competition. Maybe you care about organic growth in SEO, and search ranking is important to you. Or maybe you care about building for the next hyperbolic growth market for users, which is us. It's the emerging markets. So following on from the why, perhaps we can take a brief look at the next big question, which is the what. So what are the core web vitals? Now, the core web vitals are user-facing metrics that are indicative of the user experience, that try and represent what would indicate a positive user experience in broad terms, which is a little bit ambiguous. But luckily, it's been broken down into really, really easily digestible bits, right? There are three metrics that we care about at the moment. The first of which is largest contentful paint, which is however long it takes for the largest single item, block level item, to appear on the page. And we use this as sort of a user-facing metric for how fast the page loads visually. And there are other metrics that have been trialed in the past that are far more complicated, like speed index, which is a progression of frames, and first meaningful paint. But this is really, really easy to measure. And when it's easy and simple to measure, we get far more reliable results, so we can make more informed decisions. The next one that we care about is something called first input delay, which is essentially how long it takes a user to be able to respond to input during page load. So while the page is busy loading and the JavaScript is busy processing and downloading stuff, the user can click, and they think that they can click. They think the page is completed, but it doesn't respond. And this is analogous to sort of like a lag on the page or a delay on the page. And it is the thing that we're using to measure interactivity and responsiveness. Now, if you follow the link and you go and take a look at the how it gets calculated, it's actually a little bit complicated under the hood, or at least I find it complicated under the hood. But it is a very interesting and compelling metric to keep track of. Now, the last one is cumulative layout shift, which represents the visual stability of the page so that things aren't moving around either during page load or subsequent to it. And this is typically covered by like ads or poor animation events that aren't necessarily well thought through or aren't working appropriately, or things that contribute to an unstable user experience that makes the page feel a little bit broken or a little bit slow. And it's a very interesting metric, because when you get into some of the cynical patterns on the web, like you know, deliberately clickjacking for ads and click-through rates for advertising, and you know, just some dynamic injection events that we see on some sites, this guards against it very actively. Now, some of the stuff that we found out from Chrome Dev Summit is that there are concrete plans on future metrics. At the moment, the set is really, really small, and it's deliberately small because they're trying to test adoption to see if the stuff is useful to people and whether it drives the right behavior in building really compelling user experiences that are fast on the web. So the first thing that they might want to introduce, and they're really looking at, is something called first contentful paint, which is when the first pixels are drawn to the page. And I think this is because the largest contentful paint actually hurts some sites that are designed to be fast, sites that load up all of the static markup and lazy load the dynamic elements or images. They'll be hurt by the LCP because the image comes in later, even though there's text and markup and stuff for the user to consume. So first contentful paint makes sense in that context. The one thing that will happen, so cumulative layout shift was very experimental, but it will be counted far higher in future. But there's still more that they want to do with it. So there is, at the moment, this idea that cumulative layout shift is primarily for the initial page load of things, or that's how it's being measured. But it can also be for longer-lived sites that have more dynamic experiences, right? So things that have infinite scroll or an infinite bounded set that exists on a single page. How does CLS measure in those contexts so that it isn't hurting those sites? And then even further out than that, there are other things that need to be worked on. So the first input delay is unfortunately a difficult one to calibrate, right? So the idea of what the threshold should be for a good first input delay, like how long is acceptable to wait during page load that a user can't interact with anything. Is it 50 milliseconds? Is it 100 milliseconds? Where does that sit? And unfortunately, that has a long-reaching impact. For the kinds of code that we write very often, we write larger single-page applications that are very JavaScript heavy, that are apps rather than content sites. And those are meaningful and valuable on the web, but they get hurt really badly by measuring layout shift, right? Because you're still just in one single page, but you're navigating internally with like a React router or something. And each of those is a layout shift event. So how do we measure that without hurting those sites? Something that's coming along the pipeline is smooth scrolling. So when you scroll down, if some scripts and markup is interfering with that experience, like how nice does it feel for the user to consume stuff? And then finally, the vitals are getting really, really good traction, and they're liking what they see, and they will be used. They will be used for something. They still sort of surface in Lighthouse, which we'll talk about in a moment, but they're probably going to be used in some context, in badging, via links, or via search. We don't have concrete info, but we know that something's coming. They mentioned it in 2019, and it's about when it's ready. So I've just mentioned Lighthouse. So the last thing we're going to the next thing we're going to move on to is the relationship between Lighthouse and Core Web Vitals, right? Because it's non-trivial, and they're both things that measure page performance numbers. Now, to explain this, I need to explain RUM. Okay, not that kind of RUM, all right? We're talking about RUM as in real user metrics. So real user metrics that are actually people that are out in the wild. The other thing that we call this is field data. So if you take a look at the field data for your users in the wild, every person has got a slightly different phone on slightly different connectivity with a very slightly different experience. And for every metric that we collect, we get this spectrum of results, where some of it is good, some of it's okay, and some of it might be bad. And that is the breadth of the field. So you'll find that a lot of the guidance talks about percentiles. So like the 50th percentile means that this number, 50% of the people that experience this have this experience or better. So they load at this time or faster. Or at the 95th percentile, it would be 95% of people have this experience or this load time or this metric or better. Now, the 50th percentile is not super valuable, although stable, and the 95th percentile is very vulnerable to outliers. So I think things have been calibrated, and we often talk about the 75th percentile as being where we measure our metrics at for real user data. In contrast, Lighthouse results, which is lab data, gets fielded as a single value, as a single discrete item. Now, practically, Lighthouse does run several times and then take the 75th percentile or the analogous of those results. And it will it will effectively end up being at the higher end of your result spectrum of your real user metrics. So we can look at the Lighthouse results and the real user metrics 75th percentile very closely correlating. They're not going to be exact, so you're not going to see the same number, but they should be very close to one another. Typically, I believe the Lighthouse results are often worse than the real user metrics, which is a good thing. So we can make our experiences even better. So in terms of Lighthouse and how we can take things that we're actually measuring out in the field and then simulate them in a lab environment, we can look at the following analogous things. So cumulative layout shift, CLS, is relatively straightforward. We can measure CLS on the page load, but the important thing to remember is that it's only the page load of what appears above the fold. Anything that's laying out lower down or shifting lower down won't be penalized or won't reflect in the Lighthouse results. First contentful paint is straightforward. It's a simple metric, so it's reliable to correlate between real user data, so field data and lab data. But first input delay is unfortunately complicated. So you have to use two proxy metrics in conjunction to optimize for first input delay, which is total blocking time and time to interactive. So the sooner that you're interactive and the less that you block, the higher the likelihood that the user's input is not going to be delayed. So they're both metrics that you care about in terms of optimizing for your site. And already as a part of the Lighthouse 7.1 metrics, the score, or the largest contributing items to the score, are those four things. So the things that are the proxy metrics for Core Web Vitals. And the adage that I've heard thrown around is that you test in the lab using Lighthouse results, and then you validate those results in the field. Just so that the real user metrics are a delayed feedback cycle. So moving on to tooling, there have been lots of really, really exciting updates across the board. The first one is the performance panel. Now, one day when I'm big, which I'm hoping will still happen, I will understand everything that goes on in this page, but at the moment, I still find it super, super intimidating. So I'm going to point out a couple of things that have been added for the Core Web Vitals. So there are these very useful labels that you can see there on timings that are the essential browser timing events. That you can just click on that event, ignoring the flame charts around it, and you can see firstly when it happened, what the screen looked like at the point in which it happened, and then at the bottom there, you can see which node in this context was the largest contentful paint, which is really, really useful. So you know what the thing is that the browser is finding as a part of the performance panel as being that target item, and then when in the life cycle it happened. The next thing that they've added is this idea of or measuring when the layout shifts happen during the course of the page. So while you're navigating in your page or while you're loading up, you can see these big red blocks that are when things are moving about on the page that are undesirable. And then the last relevant part is the little hashed blocks at the bottom, and each one of these represents a JavaScript task on the main thread. Now, if you see that they're filling up the main thread and there are not very many gaps in between, that means that if I were to tap on the page or click on the page, chances are likely I would be queued behind one of those tasks and my interaction would be delayed, which is a really, really bad thing. And then changing gears completely in terms of real user metrics, there's the Chrome User Experience Report, which is now a family of stuff. So the Crux report is primarily a data set, which now contains the top 8 million origins, which is quite a lot. And they store all of that in BigQuery. So if you have the BigQuery credits and you know how to BigQuery, you can go and query the data yourself and get really, really granular feedback about what those metrics mean. If you don't know BigQuery or are inexperienced with SQL or don't have the credits, you can use one of two things. You can either use the dashboard, which you can see an example of on the right-hand side, where you can give it whatever origin that you're looking for, and you can see all of the key results using Chrome's own data collected against the top origins. And if you want to script this and create your own dashboards, there's a full REST API where you can query the results with, which is super, super cool. Following on from that, and this actually isn't a released thing yet, but it's something I'm super excited about. There's a performance HUD that's coming, which shows not only the core web vitals, but also really, really crucial things like drop frames and etc. It's not ready yet. It will come soon, eventually, maybe. But if you can't wait, there's a really, really awesome Chrome extension that has been released, which has just the core web vitals exposed on every single page, and you can just click on it and see what the vitals are for that page, which is super useful. Finally, cycling back to Lighthouse, there are new audits that have been added. So firstly, one that I'm really, really excited about is that Lighthouse now highlights opportunities to lazy load third parties, which is amazing. Anybody that's tried to hunt down which third-party scripts or ad scripts or tag managers are causing things to be slow, this will help. Although I do believe that it primarily targets images and video at the moment, but they are looking to expand it, and as well as new audits to highlight when you could preload an LCP image and get a huge benefit in terms of the scoring. And there's a whole bunch more. I felt that those two things were really, really important to highlight, but most of the metrics and audits that you need for Core Web Vitals are already in the Lighthouse report. So last big question, how? How do we go about optimizing ourselves and dealing with the Core Web Vitals as an optimization target? And I'm going to go through each of them individually really, really quickly. So the first one is for largest contentful paint. So what you want to see is you want to make sure that the user sees the page content rather than blocking on other dependencies. So you don't want to block the critical render path. And there's a bunch of stuff that you can do with this. So deferring JavaScript is a key one, because often that's the biggest performance killer on a page while we're trying to parse, compile, and run JavaScript. So you can just defer that to the bottom. I prefer defer over async, because you can get guaranteed load order, and async still has the potential to interrupt the render once the script is downloaded. And I've seen really, really good results with defer. Then the other thing that you can do is speed up content download. So pre-connect to the critical content, like your fonts and style sheets and external images and dependencies that you have to. And then when it gets to them in the page, the DNS connection will already be primed. And then the last thing you can do is either server-side render, or even better, pre-render your pages so that there's as much static as possible and the user can see the whole page and all of your content. Just a word of warning, I would be careful with isomorphic or universal JavaScript in any context, because it's a real performance black hole. Then if you want to optimize for cumulative layout shift, the first thing that you can do is the stuff that's responsible for putting things on the page in particular blocks and where things sit on a page. I think you want to inline those layout styles, so just in the HTML wherever possible, so that the page is stable on load. And if you've got stuff like images, don't let it respond necessarily. Explicitly set the height and width that you expect for those images. I've also seen really good results with using font display optional, which gives sort of a timeout for loading web fonts, so that if the font takes a long time to download, it's not going to try and download it and replace. It's just going to render your page normally. And then the best way to debug code is to delete it. So if you can defer styles, do that. And if you can just remove stuff that you don't use, you should definitely do that. The last one, which is first input delay. First input delay is related to the JavaScript load time, which I feel is like the fulcrum of front-end performance. It's the most important stuff to fix because it's the most costly. So basically, you want to do two primary things, which is minimize the amount of blocking time. So the amount of time that the browser spends not being able to run JavaScript or not being able to render stuff. And a lot of that is minimizing how much work happens on the main thread. So literally, the less code you ship, the less JavaScript you ship on the main thread, the faster everything will be. And then for that, you can defer JavaScript and lazy load it. You can break it into smaller chunks so it isn't one long task that ends up blocking the input of the user. And then when it comes to JavaScript code, I don't think we're brutal enough, right? I think we should hold to a single simple principle, which is we should not ship code to our users that they're never going to run. So use those code coverage tools and make sure that you're using every single library and every line of code that you're sending to your users. And to wrap this up really briefly, this is not my own thinking. Obviously, this is just a summary of my takeaways from Chrome Dev Summit. And I learned a lot from the following talks. I encourage you wholeheartedly to watch all of the talks, to consume all of the performance stuff. But if you held me down and you forced me to choose 4, these are the 4 that I think are amazing. And I encourage you to, after this, go and watch them. Now, before I take any questions, I just want to shout out the fact that particularly regarding the Core Web Vitals, the team is very open to feedback and are actively looking for people to give them their ideas and their commentary and such about how the stuff is working and problems and pitfalls at Confusion. So if you have any feedback, please email it to webvitalsfeedback@googlegroups.com. And if you have any questions for me afterwards, you can hit me up on Twitter and we can talk about it. And yeah, that's me. Thanks for listening to me, and I'll take any questions that you have.
Thank you so much, Mike. That was really amazing. It's just good to see how the Core Web Vitals are really important for web experiences. When you're talking about how to measure load performance and visual stability and things like that, I think it's something that a lot of us may not just have heard about it, but it's good to see how in-depth you have gone and just explained it to us. So thank you so much, Mike. We will be taking questions from the audience. So if you have any questions, kindly feel free to post it on the chat section. Oh, everybody just like, thank you. That was really a really deep talk. Some of the feedback from the audience. Okay.
Thanks, Anidi.
Quite insightful from Sleek. Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay, there's a good question. What if the DNS you're sourcing, your font goes down? How would you fall back? Right, so you want to pick good system font families, and you want to use font display optional, so that if it falls down, you really quickly respond with the default system font that's already on that computer. I think that works for me.
Okay. Any more questions that you have for Mike? And also feel free to reach out to him on Twitter and make sure you follow him if you have any questions. Questions from the audience, just post it. Okay. So Anidi is asking, what would be your 2 or 3 hacks for improving your website's performance?
That's a great question. 2 or 3. Okay, let's talk about the most important one. Okay, all right, let's go there, right? So it's 2021, okay? ES 2015 was released in 2015. So ES modules were released in 2015 with ES 2015. We should be using modern JavaScript. So if you've got a Webpack config that you've borrowed from someone, or you copied and pasted, or you're relying on a tool, make sure that you ship modern JavaScript to modern browsers. So all of those slow phones that we have to support, they all run ES modules. So don't ship ES5, which is ancient and bloated. So that's the number one. The second one, and the simplest one, is defer your JavaScript. There's almost no reason not to defer your JavaScript, because then what happens is that it runs at just before DOM content loaded, so your page is completely rendered. All of the elements are there, and you can guarantee load order. So it's super, super safe, and I've seen almost no downsides to deferring it. I think that's 2. I can probably list a whole bunch more, but I'll leave it at 2.
Okay, thank you. So we have a question from Andrew. Is deferring and as well as using lazy loading a good practice for optimization?
Absolutely. I think it's essential. And for the modern web, as we move forward, everyone will have to lazy load and defer to get decent experiences. And this is, I think, this is not a new thing. This is something that native apps have been doing for a very long time, only loading code as they need it. So I think we're slow to adopt, and I think the previous two talks feed into that point. We're growing the capabilities of the web, but we're also trying to grow our design patterns and our, how we build the web.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. We'll take one last question. So first of all, it starts with a thank you, Mike, for your wonderful presentation. Now, before now, I thought universal or isomorphic was really cool. Could you throw more light on it being a performance black hole? Okay, great. So I'll do that. So the problem with universal code is that the requirements, so the server, when it's sending HTML down to the client, it's only sending HTML, not JavaScript. So code that you're writing for that initial render cycle only belongs in the server and probably shouldn't necessarily happen on the client. Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you then do on the client that has got server-side code blended into it. And you often find that those isomorphic applications very quickly get bloated. And there's a lot of unused or unnecessary code because it was never meant to run on the client because the HTML already exists on the front end. And if we're really honest with ourselves, we primarily just use JavaScript to change CSS styles and flip things around and then send data to a server anyway. So we don't need to download 1.5 megabytes of JavaScript to do that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I don't know if you're open to one last question.
Sure. I'll take it as long as we've got them.
Yeah. So how does DOM virtualization help performance?
Yeah. Okay. So so not in this context and not in the context of Core Web Vitals. So the virtual DOM is essential for how certain frameworks work, and particularly frameworks like React or Preact. I'm not going to speak off the cuff and comment about Vue. I know Angular uses a hybrid approach. But that existed before like the lower level primitives were in place to deal with Shadow DOM, for example's sake, and that level of encapsulation. So virtual DOM is something so that you can update DOM nodes effectively inside the browser. Basically keeping a JavaScript representation of the actual DOM, which is a representation of the actual page source. It gets confusing. It's a good question.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you so much, Mike, for your time and for creating time to speak to us about the Core Web Vitals. We'd like to hear a parting shot from you and how can people connect with you, and also what next? So like what else do you have for us maybe planned, if you have anything?
Okay, so my parting shot is going to be, it's wonderful being a part of this. The Pan-Africanism, I think, is a beautiful thing. And speaking to so many different communities across the continent, I would encourage everyone to stay safe and everyone to make sure that their local communities stay alive and help and thrive. So help one another, be kind to one another. And I'm sure I'll talk about more performance stuff soon, probably. And thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Mike, for creating time for us. I think I'd love to hear more about the load performance and just the measuring bit of it. Thank you so much, and goodbye. Okay, so that was really, really amazing. We have learned a lot. We have learned about the importance of load performance, how measuring load performance, measuring visual stabilization, and also measuring interactivity. So that was really, really great. And I guess we'll jump back to Mae, who had to drop off because of technical glitches. So we are hoping Mae is with us. Thank you so much, Mike, for the time, and feel free to reach out to him. We will be sharing his Twitter handle with you on how you can actually follow him and contact him later. Thank you, Mae.
Oh yeah, I'm back. Thank you for your patience. These things happen, yeah, not surprised. Great. So yeah. I don't know. So just quick. So I was talking about building next level apps for the web, and about amazing things that the GDG community provides us as community leaders and members, and that I'm part of it, and I'm proud. Yeah, and always connect with me on Twitter, and we can always have a chat. So I was speaking about web apps being able to do anything native applications can do, and topping up on what Irae was saying wonderfully that there's this initiative to kind of feel what is possible to be done on a native app platform to web platform, and there's been this amazing effort with Google and other browser vendors to kind of build these modern capabilities, bridging the gap and into the web platform. And such initiatives have been really, really wonderful. And there's a lot that you can kind of tap in and start kind of building these very powerful capabilities into your web apps. And three things that was actually insisting on before I was cut off here. It was that these new capabilities, people are asking Irae about security. So these new capabilities, these new web APIs, these bridging the gap initiative is principled on three core things, and that is being able to, as much as we build these powerful APIs into the browsers, we keep the performance of the web app that consumes this instant, and also ensuring that this is done in a very secure manner. So by default nowadays, you can see that sites that are not served over HTTPS cannot be available unless you kind of manually as a user invoke that. Yeah, and with this one now provides us a basis to kind of start building and experimenting these new capabilities into our web apps and kind of tapping into it. Now that Irae had talked about these amazing new web capabilities, personally, I have been a fan of new capabilities that have been built into the web, especially the progressive web apps, which is the mother to these new modern capabilities that have been built into the browsers. And I and a friend of mine based in Poland, is also a GDE for Angular. We decided to build a library that kind of allows you to quickly consume and experiment these particular new web capabilities. And what we've done is kind of build all these into one package, so that you can access any of those: the contact pickers, the copy text, the file text, the file pickers that Irae was also demoing. Yeah, you see. So that is what personally I've done and tried to kind of share out, and sharing my excitement towards these amazing capabilities that the Chrome team is actually leading towards the web platform. And just to kind of showcase one of the exciting way to kind of use or experiment with these new capabilities as quickly as possible in any of your applications, that is React, in case if you're using let's say vanilla kind of JavaScript or HTML kind of build applications. It doesn't matter, you can access it over the CDN and have the same capability of just having the exposure to all these new capabilities. Now, for example, here you can see you can install PWA, for example, and from it destructure the PWA namespace that allows you now to get access to all these new web capabilities. So what we've done is build these stable capabilities into the library. So for example, here, this one is a React component. You can see it's a copy button component. So what you're doing is the component, the button is receiving a prop text, a string, so let's say text to copy. So once you click the button, you invoke copy text, which is the copy text or asynchronous copy clipboard API. So you invoke that on the PWA namespace, and wow, you have that capability into your application. And one of the amazing things we've done to kind of just kind of spread the gospel around building on Project Fuju, we've done exclusive documentation page for all these stable capabilities. So I think I'm still sharing. Yeah. So the badging API, like you saw, you were experimenting that. Yeah. So now, if, for example, you had PWA in your application, installed it as a library. So what you need to do is just call set badge on PWA, and you pass in the count for notifications and all those things. The copy text, you pass in the text. You can copy images. So we've, instead of you copying that or trying to write the entire web API or new capability implementation, you just pass in very little parameters, and you have the capability into your application. Like, for example, for copying images, so you just pass in an image URL, and that type of, so long as it's an image, is copied to the clipboard, and you can paste it wherever you want to paste. Yeah, so from the web or from any web app application that you build this capability into it. We have the contact speaker. So you pass in, for example, the name. You want to select the name, you want to select the email, you want to select the telephone numbers. So those are the properties you want to select. And then we have, do you want to select multiple or single at a go? And then once you're done, you just invoke contacts on PWA and you pass the props and options, and whoa, you have the capability into your progressive web app or web app, modern web application. So what we've done is kind of simplify how you actually implement these new amazing stable web capabilities into your web applications. Yeah, and then we have the full screen. You can install, you just pass in the button that is being clicked, for example, and people can have you can have a custom install button like on Spotify, I guess, and have a custom experience on how people actually install your progressive web apps. The notifications, there's no hassle of invoking the notification API on the navigator everywhere. So, for example, if you're in a React environment or application, all you need to do is import the library, and when you invoke PWA, a share notification, you pass in whatever you want to show to the user, and whoa, you have the capability into your application. There's nothing extraordinary about this. It's just a way of kind of, we really got excited about the new web capabilities and decided, why don't we kind of build a way to allow developers to actually have this on the go while building their applications, whether it's a framework-based application or it's just HTML and JavaScript. And yeah, so that is interesting. Yeah, and then we have you can pick text like what it was demoing. So in this case, if we had she was importing the library from the CDN, or the only thing she could do was to kind of so you expect to get a return of contents, and then you await PWA to pick that text file. Maybe it's a button, so inside that button you invoke this pick text file method on PWA namespace, and you have this amazing capability of being able to read or pick files from your local machine or user's device and do whatever you need to do with that content you get. And then the web log, so you also invoke the web log web capability on PWA, and there you have it. So one single line and that is done. So you don't really need to kind of write different scripts or backlog.js and whatever to have these capabilities. Yeah, so we're very excited about this, and we have the web share. So you can see this is simple, and then the exciting one is web payment API. So these are an addition. It has been there, but I think it's a very interesting kind of feature to kind of new capability you can actually build into your application. So for example, I can show you a demo here. If you click pay now, for example, so you can see you prompt the web API kind of interface into Chrome. It's built into Chrome and Microsoft Edge because of the Chromium built into it. So what it does is you collect all the data you want to collect from, let's say, a merchant, a market, an e-commerce site, and then you pass this data to your payment provider, and you don't need to kind of build an interface to kind of allow checkout into in your e-commerce site. And yeah, that is really exciting about it. And you can always go there, experiment all these new capabilities. So what we'll be doing with the project at docs.pwf.org is kind of bring these new stable capabilities existing and providing you a way to kind of easily just on the go have them implemented in your applications. Yep. Just to wrap up, so these are some of the stable, like web APIs or web capabilities, the notification triggers, periodic background sync, web share. This is how, so you natively invoke the share dialog in a particular device, let's say Android, and you're able to share content from your web application to other. You are actually, let me be strict, PWAs to other applications installed in your devices. And yeah, that is it about it. And this is how like the contact picker API works. So prompts up you to select contacts from your device and you can share them. Yeah. So if you passed the prompt, for example, as let me go to, where is it? Contact picker. So if you said select multiple, so you'll be able to kind of select multiple contacts. If you say otherwise, then you'll only be able to select one contact and that is it. And you can do whatever you want to do with that array of data, that of contacts that is given back to your web application. And that is it. The exciting things that Project Fuju is doing, and these are capabilities you can actually build into your applications. And yeah, just like I said, where I see the web platform going is where developers will never need to decide whether they want to be mobile or native application developers or web app application developers. You could choose any stack and you'll be sure that you can build entirely anything that you want to build, depending with your skill set as a web dev or a native app developer. And that in totality is kind of very exciting. And yeah, I think you guys can go check it out. Go to web.dev slash Fuju status and just interact with some of these features. And if you want to really build some of these stable web capabilities into your application, then you can check out the PWF library and yeah, have fun. And also feel free to share around some of these within your communities, and let's build a better web together. And that is it, guys. Thank you so much, and I hope you had fun.
Yay, Maya, we definitely had fun. So let's build a better web together. And I think one of the things that stood out for me was when you say that one single line is all we need, and we don't need several scripts to just execute one thing. That's really great. Okay, so we have learned, Maya has taken us through all the APIs, and Irae took us also through 3 of the APIs. It's just amazing to see what some of the changes that happened, what are some of the things that were announced during Chrome Dev Summit last year. We would like to get questions from the audience. If you have questions for Maya, kindly post it on the chat section. Okay. Questions for Maya. Okay, we're getting gratitude. Thank you so much, my Lancelot. Nice presentation. Do you have any questions for my? Okay, so Mai, to you. Thanks for the presentation on PWA. We'll check it out later. Are these new web capabilities supported across all major browsers or only on Chrome-based browsers?
So just like I said, Project Fuju is an initiative by Chrome, the Chrome team. So, but then we've seen recently Apple, other browser vendors, Firefox. We also saw an amazing move by Microsoft, kind of building Edge on top of Chromium, which is a Chrome-based browser. So most of these capabilities are very stable on Chromium-based browsers, and the other browsers are trying to kind of adapt. But I think most of these capabilities are supported on most of the browsers, but for Chromium-based browsers is a sure thing. Yeah. So, but we hope that as we move forward, building these capabilities into the web platform as a community through open source or company-led initiatives like Project Fuju, more companies or more browser vendors would see sense to kind of being part of the global standard of building these new powerful capabilities into the web. Yeah. So yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, thank you, Maya. Okay, Anidi is asking, are there any demo websites of your own or your own project that show these APIs in action?
Oh yeah. For example, if you go to, for example, where on the docs.pwfile.org, you will see most of those APIs. We've built a demo application for it, and you can actually play around it. I can also show you a single, I think one of the amazing demo I have is the badging API. So I built an application where, let me just share my screen.
Yes, please. We would love to see it in action.
So share screen. Great. So there is this. This is a progressive web application. I guess you can see it. Yeah. So this has most of those most of the new web capabilities. You can see it to start from the basic, a PWA, you can install it. And then one last thing I was missing out on the building this amazing capability into the web apps is also thinking of how to build really new kind of interfaces like Twitter UIs, so that if people install it on their desktop devices, they can see that, yeah, look like really like native kind of desktop applications and etc. So you can see, for example, this one has a badging. If I, for example, created a task automatically, let's say test task, there is a count increase. This was 9. The count, I don't know if you can see, it's so tiny. Options, there's a way you can show huge. Okay, cool. The badging basically. So I don't show the demo. So it's so automatic. So it depends on the way you want to kind of use it. For instance, for us, when you add more tasks to these applications, there's a count increase showing you on your desktop that you have like 10 pending tasks that you need to complete to work on. And if I did complete one of the tasks, for example, if I went back to it and I said, this is done, you can see the count reduces automatically on the budget. Yeah, so that is one of the use cases you could use badging for. Maybe you don't want to bother your users with notifications and noise. You could just use the badging API to kind of just do that visually. Yeah. So, but on the documentation of the library itself, there's more of those example applications that you can actually have a look at and yeah, enjoy and have fun building your applications from.
Wow, that's like a really, really amazing implementation of the badging API. Maybe at some point you'll get to tell us about what exactly does the project do, the one that you just created. It would be good to get to know from you as the developer or the brains behind it. Great. So we'll take a few more questions from the audience. So does PWA library only integrate with React, or does it support other JS frameworks like Vue and the rest?
So any framework and even natively, so you can install, import it. Let me just share my screen. For example, if I go back to the documentation, am I sharing my screen, Alela?
Yes, you are, my.
Yeah, great. So we have these. Let me increase the font. So we have this here. So you can actually get it over CDN, and within any web application you can use it. In your Angular application, Vue, install the library and you're good to go. Remember, it's just APIs built into the browsers. Yeah, so what we've done is just done the dirty work of actually implementing these applications, this web API. So all you need to do is just invoke whichever application, web API you want to use within application, and that is it. Yeah.
Okay, impressive. So let's get to hear any other questions that come from the audience. So Mike is asking if you could have one capability if you could have one capability added to the web, what would it be?
Web payments. Yeah. Web payments. Okay. Yeah. So not really being able to build, you are talking about performance. Yeah. If I can use natively built interfaces like the web payment UI in the Chrome browser, then so be it. So I just invoke the API and it returns to me all the data it collects, the addresses, for example, if it is an e-commerce site, and I pass it to my payment provider. And yeah, that is it. And I can also even build on top of Google Pay, and yeah, so web payments.
Okay, amazing. So my people would like to access your slides later on. If you're okay, you will share it with the audience. In the meantime, let's look for more questions from the audience. Okay. And thank you so much for coming despite the technical glitch that you experienced before.
Yeah.
I don't see any other questions, but really appreciate the effort. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let's get to hear your parting shot as our final speaker. What do you have to tell your audience? And for those who are interested in getting to learn more about this, where exactly can they get these resources?
My parting shot is learn. Just learn and share. Simple. Learn and share. If you become mean with knowledge, you may not even know if the knowledge you actually have is knowledge. Yeah. But if you share it out, if it has some, yeah. So basic principle: learn and share. Yep. And that is it.
Okay. Yeah, quite important. Let's learn, let's share the knowledge that we have. It's really, really important. And I'd say for that, let's plug into the communities around us. Let's plug into our GDG communities. Mai is a GDG organizer, and he talked about how it's very important and what they do as a community. So let's plug into communities like GDG Eldoret and other communities around us. Really, really important. Thank you so much, Mai, for the time that you have created and for the great session. I believe everybody in this particular session has learned a thing or two plus from you. Thank you so much, Mai, and do have a fantastic evening.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you. Great. So we have learned quite a lot. I don't even know where to start from. All the way from Irae to Mike, and now closing the session with Mai. Wow, I'm like mind blowing. So we would like to get feedback from you on how the event was, some of the things that like maybe what can we do better for you on the next sessions? What did we do great? Because I know we did well. I feel like we did well. So we'd like to hear from you. So kindly on the link provided, just take 2 minutes or less to just give us your feedback. Let's hear from you on what you have to say. Thank you so much for attending the session. Thank you so much for creating time. We will figure out how to share the details, and feel free to reach out to Irae on Twitter, Mike on Twitter, or Mai also on Twitter. Thank you so much for the time that you have created. Kindly don't forget to fill in the feedback form. And while doing so, also, you can still share whatever content that you had gathered. Hashtag is TDS extended, hashtag SSA. Thank you so much, and do have a fantastic day, evening, night, depending on where you are. Bye.